Welcome to In the Trenches, where entrepreneurs, artists, writers, designers, inventors, warriors, and leaders share their stories of doing the hard, creative work that impacts all of our lives. Let the journey inspire you to do something worthwhile, build something bold, and create your life's work. And now, your host, Tom Morkis.
Welcome back, everyone, to another broadcast of In the Trenches. I'm very excited to have on today's call Chris Badgett, who is the founder of LifterLMS, which is a SaaS company that makes online courses essentially easy for you to create, control, sell, market, the whole nine yards. And we're going to talk about kind of how he built this platform, how he's growing it, and just a little bit about what led him to what he's doing today. So, Chris, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on the show, Tom.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure for sure. So I know you have a super interesting background because we talked before. This isn't our first conversation. You told me a little bit about some of the travel you've done with your family and stuff like that. And I just was really impressed by it and the fact that now you're building this amazing, software company. But before we get to the LifterLMS and everything you're doing with that, tell me a little bit about your background. Like, what led you to building this company?
Well, my background has been kind of non-traditional in the tech space. I'm an avid outdoor person. So back in high school, now I grew up in North Carolina. Currently, I live in Maine, but I've lived all over the country and in different parts of the world. But my interest growing up was more in social things like anthropology and psychology. And then I got into outdoor leadership in a big way and ultimately ended up in Alaska for almost 10 years. Managing a sled dog tour business on a glacier that you could only get to by helicopter. There was 30 people working there, a couple hundred sled dogs, managing a lot of responsibility and risk and that sort of thing. So that's really where I cut my teeth on leadership, managing a business, and working with lots of customers and employees and things like that. But ultimately, through that journey as an outdoor professional, I'm big into mountain climbing, rock climbing, all that kind of stuff. Took a semester off college to hike the Appalachian Trail. Through all that, I got interested in the online world. It started off as a hobby. I found my experience in leading teams and also interest in anthropology and social science actually is how I kind of edged into becoming a marketer. So I'm kind of like a social scientist who became a marketer. And then over time, I started becoming fascinated with membership sites, online courses, started publishing my own, and then partnering with other professionals around the world. That led me to some international travel to record some educational events and things of that nature. And then I started creating digital products and online courses around that. And through all that experience, I ended up, wanting to build a better mousetrap and essentially make my own online course solution for the marketplace. So that's the short version.
I love it. Okay, so not many people I know have transitioned from, tell me if I'm using the right terminology, the sled dog. Like, what would you call that again?
Dog mushing, like training and running
from dog mushing in Alaska to building a software company. So real quick, give me a little snapshot, day in the life of when you were doing that back in Alaska. What was like a typical day when you're doing that? And was there any and maybe even maybe the craziest thing you ever experienced doing that? I feel like there must have been some extreme situations, extreme weather. I don't know. Give us a little clue of what life would have been like for you.
Well, I have all kinds of stories just from mushing and other outdoor adventures. But I would say from the sled dog world, there's really two sides to that coin. One side was managing an ecotourism business that was one of the, voted as one of the best excursions in the world by Disney or somebody like that. Up there, sometimes I've spent 30 days on an ice field without, going to where there's power and things like that, and running, groups of grizzly bears coming into camp. Just dealing with, being in a wilderness environment, all kinds of interesting things happen. The weather comes in, you can't see 5 feet in front of you. And so that's kind of intense. And then in the off season, a great mentor and friend who was the owner of that business was a Iditarod sled dog racer, which is a 1,000-mile race across Alaska. I learned from him the art of mushing, and I also ran some races myself, and that's where I really learned how to train sled dogs and get into animal psychology and, endurance, marathoning with dogs, basically. And, in the wilderness of Alaska, I mean, you're going into uncertain terrain. Sometimes you have to watch out for moose who can come in and start, kicking the dog. So I'd roll around with a sawed-off shotgun with a slug shot, just ready if I ever had to encounter with a moose I had to deal with. So, but there's all kinds of stories. I mean, I could go on and on about a lot of stories.
No, it's fascinating, man. I mean, it's like probably one of those, one of the most rare professions I think I've ever heard of, and especially like the transition from that to now building, a software company. So fast forward to the future. Tell me a little bit about the inspiration specifically for LifterLMS. Like, I'm curious, and tell us a little bit about what it is and the inspiration of kind of like what got you started building it.
I've always been kind of a stranger in a strange land, and what I mean by that is I grew up in a college town in North Carolina, and I ended up in all these places. And I got really interested in, the social sciences, like I was saying. So I actually started running sled dogs in Colorado, not far from where you are. That's where I got my start and all that. But through my journey, I just have an insane curiosity about life and, living a life well lived. And then I'm extremely open-minded to the point where I just really love learning new things, whether that's running sled dogs or online commerce or, how to communicate more effectively, how to become a better leader, how to become a better manager, all these things. I'm just myself so fascinated by the topic of learning that, I just have always, and I think the older I get, the more I realize this is kind of my thing is if I get interested in something, I will follow it to the absolute ultimate conclusion. And my fascination with online education and seeing the economy change, seeing people have trouble getting jobs with their education, seeing, education entrepreneurs, I like to call them, starting to build out, businesses based on training people, helping people get jobs and so on. I've just become fascinated with that medium.
Cool. So then when you get started in this, you obviously don't have any experience like per se in course creation, or necessarily software, right? So what are some of the hurdles?
Zero.
So tell me a little bit about that. Like, how do you go from zero knowledge on something, zero background, zero experience, to actually getting something up and running with, paying customers?
I think one of my strengths has to do with building a team, whether that's, that comes from things like running a remote team in an outdoor leadership situation, or even getting into more subconscious psychology stuff like leading a team of sled dogs. And not doing it alone. I think there's this common myth or just story we tell ourselves as entrepreneurs, especially in the digital space where we want to automate everything and be a solopreneur with, everything's automated and, 4-hour work week and that kind of thing. And I've always kind of done the opposite. I guess ultimately I started building websites for fun, and then people asked me to do it. I would charge $500, for my early sites. And in my agency days, I got up to some 6-figure web projects with a team around me with very different skill sets. So I don't look for carbon copies of me. I look for people, the designer is very different from the developer, which is very different from the project manager, and so on. So team building is the key, but also I have an obsessive focus on what actually works and like using things in reality, not just for good ideas. And what I mean by that is my very first website is I started investing in real estate in Alaska because I was making a bunch of money on a glacier. I couldn't spend it anywhere. So I started investing in land, and I built a cabin and hand pumped well and lived on that with my now wife for a while. But anyways, there came a time where I needed to sell that property. So I built a web page with a simple embedded YouTube video that I shot with my camcorder at the time about the property. And I just used modern internet marketing in a place that had never seen it. And then, started using Google AdWords for when it was cheap, like 5 cents a click. And all of a sudden I was able to sell my land up there for double what I got it at the top of the recession. And I realized like, oh my gosh, this marketing thing works and being a good communicator works. So I'm always like obsessively focused on what actually works. So when we build like a sales checkout flow in the LifterLMS software, we're looking for things that actually work and drive conversions. When we build engagement features, like we care a lot about like seeing people actually complete courses that they start. So we're always looking at data and looking at like what is actually helping, increase conversions, increase course completion, and so on. So for me, it's an obsession of constantly challenging assumptions and then taking a really open-minded team approach, both with the team and with the customer base and the prospects.
Okay, and tell me a little bit about like how'd you get this thing? I'm curious too, like because I mean it's a big undertaking because of like everything you just said, like all the different components. You need the developer, the designer. You need to be able to market and sell it. I guess where did you specifically start? Like, what were the things that you got in place like first that were like essential to kind of getting you to where you are today? Like, and then what was that process of like getting your first few sales? Getting those first few customers like on the platform.
Got it. So the very first launch of LifterLMS about 3 years ago, we had 42 customers. But before even the first launch of the software, there was basically a lead page, sales page with an offer about what it does with an opt-in list. And I think we got up to a couple hundred opt-ins without a single line of code, but not messing around. I mean, this was a real proposed feature set that I had the team to build, and I'd been doing agency work for about 4 years at that point with my company where we do custom web development. And we specialized in things, lots of marketing automation and infusion stuff, integration stuff into WordPress. So we had funded the product through client services, fully bootstrapped. We had a simple lead page with copy on it and some pictures, got validation through the interest list. And then from that validation, we took about 2 months to build the prototype, the MVP. Then we launched that to 42 customers. I remember when that first sale came in. And then it's just a continuous lean startup style approach to continuous improvement. To now we have something like 40,000 downloads of the free software. And throughout the process, we switched our business model. We changed from a premium product to a free front end with the add-on model. So we're constantly innovating and improving. But our primary focus is always on the end user. It's not even our customer. It's the customer's learner that is the most important, because if that person wins, everybody wins.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And how do you communicate that message? Because I hear that and I think to myself, that's going to take different presentation than trying to sell the platform itself to the person paying for it, to the main user, right, or the user of the software, versus like the user, or the students, right? So you have to frame it for the people you're looking to use your platform. You have to frame it a little bit differently than just like selling straight up like the software that you create. So, I guess how do you go about doing that? Especially since it sounds like your guys' ultimate focus is on that like end user, that student, basically student success. Like how do you communicate that effectively? And I guess what's the response been in the marketplace?
Yeah, I would say, we're lucky because we live in this world of education software or whatever. So the concept of education-based marketing is very natural to us. And what I mean by that is we take a polarizing approach, like especially when we first start, when you're establishing a beachhead market where the messaging is not generic. And what I mean by that is we start off with our, you would say in copywriting, you would call it a damaging reveal about what we called the dirty little secret of membership sites. So we drew a line in the sand and we said, and this is where we're doing education-based marketing, which we'll get to your question in a moment. But it's like there's these this camp over here who creates software and tools that are designed to put up a paywall, lock down content, get high conversion on sales. And that's where it kind of ends. And there, I mean, of course, there's like videos and things behind the paywall, but the focus is more on just getting that sale. So you're really focusing on the customer, not the customer's customer. And then we drew a line in the sand in the narrative, in the story, which we are 100% in values alignment with, and said, that's going on, and that's not bad. We're not anti-business. We're not anti-membership site. We're not anti-getting the sale. But what's the point of getting people through a funnel if, the people who go through it, are not wowed on the other side of the paywall? So let's focus on the learning experience too. And I think Udemy published a statistic where the average Udemy course, that's sold has a 10% completion rate. This is a serious problem. So we really focus on solving that problem. And that message either really resonates with people or it doesn't. But essentially, it's through that education of being like, okay, let's look at this industry. Let's take this disjointed software approach where people have separate membership sites, separate LMS, separate e-commerce, and separate engagement and email marketing tools. Let's solve that problem. And then let's also focus on the end user, because the best marketing is a good product. And in the education space, the true end product is that student getting the results, which they're not going to get if they don't complete the training and we don't give people tools to build the best possible training. I have a podcast called LMSCast for online course creators. So we're always like looking into the industry and looking for what's going on, what's actually working, what assumptions are we challenging, what seems to be working, and so on. So to get the customer to focus more on their customer, it really just comes from telling a compelling story and making a compelling use case. And I always like to say it's not just about, oh, you're wrong, focus on the end customer instead. It's more of a transcend and include, I like to say. So let's still focus on high conversions and good funnels and paywalls and lock person. We also have, if someone fails a quiz in the learning management system, we have it so you can send them a message and also CC a tutor or a coach or something to come. That's their cue to come in and engage with somebody who's struggling. We even have a trigger where if somebody has not logged in X number of days, you could take an action. You could send them an email, give them a, like a negative badge if you wanted to. But that's kind of the first layer. The second layer has to do with where if I'm really looking at putting my entrepreneur visionary hat on and I'm looking out into the future of learning has a lot to do with autonomy or personal leadership. It has to do with people being in world-class teams and communities, things like masterminds and just like a high level of cohort and community around a product or a training platform. And then also the ability to, learn quickly and see results quickly. So when I make a feature decision with the software, I'm asking myself, does this help promote the team or like a group experience? An example with that would be like how we integrate with forum software, how comments work below lessons, how notifications on comments work and things like that. Is what we're doing helping promote rapid learning or focus, whether that's some drip content or prerequisite stuff so people have to follow a process or have to pass something before they can move on. And then, is it promote leadership or autonomy? Can we flip the classroom upside down and allow the learner to take leadership and control over their learning and how they learn and their speed and cadence and that sort of thing? Or are we really empowering the learner, which is, a flip from the model of like a passive teacher talking down to the classroom kind of situation? So it's those kinds of things that have, helped us really focus on that engagement and getting people to finish, and also just building a community around the product, whether that's our Facebook group or our podcast. And there's a great thinker, his name's Peter Polinius, who really opened my eyes to those concepts of leadership, team, and learning. And so we're always looking to improve in ways that promote engagement.
Interesting. Okay, great. And then now that you're doing this, like, are you guys able to measure that stuff? Like, are you able to measure and see that, like, yeah, these things that you're recommending are actually improving that and like increasing people's completion of courses?
Yes, we are. I mean, it's a combination of art and science. I wish it was all science, but there are things like we have instrumented our software to have anonymous tracking that people can opt into when they first get set up. Mm-hmm. And that sends us non-personal, no data that we shouldn't be seeing. Like, we're not getting like sales figures or their user email addresses and things, but we see how people are using the software, see how their students are doing and like what their completion rates are and which, features they're using or they're not using. So we take a really scientific approach to that. We also, are constantly surveying our audience, doing questions, asking in Facebook groups and things like what's working. We're always listening to like what's working. I saw somebody in the Facebook group say the other day, I just made $100,000 in 3 days with my lifter course. Thanks so much for the awesome software. When I see something like that, whoa, what's up? How's that? What's going on? So, I connect with that person personally and I figure out like how they're using it and what's working.
Interesting. I think this is a rather competitive market. It seems like from my vantage point, and maybe I'm way off on that, but to some degree, there's like some good, some solid competitors. There's obviously the ubiquitous Udemy, and I think that has its own shortfalls when it comes to pricing and things like that, which is one of the reasons I don't use that platform. There's like baked in software with certain platforms, like what I'm using on my website. It has a built-in LMS that is very it lacks a lot of things, honestly. So it's like, in using it, I recognize the need for good software. But then there's, companies out there like Teachable, Thinkific. Where does Lifter like fit in there? How do you guys carve out your space? Like, who do you primarily attract, or what are you doing to kind of like, I don't want to say like necessarily compete against these companies, but in the context that they're kind of providing at least something similar, if in a different way. Like, I guess, how do you approach that aspect of kind of like the education space and the online kind of course space?
Awesome. That's a great question. Well, I think like with any business, over time, you get really good. And if you're not, you should focus on it, getting really good on segmentation and understanding your market and your differentiator. It's true. There's like literally hundreds, if not thousands of LMS and membership site solutions out there, which is good and bad. I mean, it's good to be in a hungry market, but, it's hard to stand out. But within that, Udemy, for example, is like a course marketplace. Teachable is a hosted solution. LifterLMS is a self-hosted solution, and it also happens to be in the WordPress niche. So there's different, like, we don't take a black and white approach to it in that, like, we recommend people often do it backwards. They focus on the software, and then they, then they build the content, and then they go try to find community. But that's actually the wrong way to do it. So the first thing is to, build a community, then build the learning content, and then wrap it in some software tool. But if you're just starting out, there's nothing wrong. My very first course was on Udemy. I still have several courses on there, and it's a great way to get leads. It's a great place to put a free course or a paid course that's going to get eyeballs without your effort. I just published a course on Udemy about how to build an online course website in WordPress about a month ago, and I've got almost a couple thousand users in there. Those are new people coming to the LifterLMS software. So there's a time and a place for everything. Teachable is great if you're kind of happy with some templates and you're not really looking to extend it, and you're happy with the design options they give you. Whereas what we have is, it's more for the person who wants more complete control over their platform. They want to own it. They want to, potentially have more advanced design or custom design. They want to add other functionality on top of it. So that's, once you get into it, they are really different. But that's where we found our sweet spot. It's the self-hosted people who want complete control, low barrier to entry, highly scalable. But really what I hear over and over again from our customers that they love is the control aspect.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then I guess I'm curious, is that where you kind of started? Was it with that, or was that kind of an iterative process? Like, did you have to pivot to find that placement?
Well, we always knew we wanted to take that engagement as a unique selling proposition. But yeah, we're always listening. We haven't had a really hard pivot besides our business model, like moving from a paid front end to a free front end. But we're listening to the market, and it was intentional for us. I think it's really important with the SaaS product to really focus on the beachhead market. And there's a great book about that if you're not familiar with it, called Crossing the Chasm. It's a classic. But we knew like the do-it-yourselfer kind of WordPress community, kind of guru market was our beachhead market. And they want control. They want extendability. They want to start small, have an MVP, and scale up. You know, our original bets, I guess I would say, have proved to be good. So we haven't really had a major pivot.
That's interesting. That's awesome. And yeah, that's actually one of my favorite books. Probably, I think it's required reading, or should be for just about anybody doing anything in the business space. Definitely in the tech space, I think it's probably most appropriate. But I think the lessons from that book are applicable to anybody. And that's Crossing the Chasm, right? Am I getting the name right?
Yep, that's right. I'm blanking on the author, but it's a classic.
Yeah, I think it's like Jeffrey something, and I feel bad that I'm blanking on. But anyway, Crossing the Chasm, check it out. Google it, YouTube it, Amazon. I'm sure it's on. I know it's on Amazon. That's where I got it. But yeah, Google it. I know there's people that have written about it. I think I've actually written a couple of articles, like from some insights that I took away from it. But awesome book. Okay, so now tell me, Chris, going forward, you know, you said you're listening to the market. Where do you go from here? Like, what's your ultimate goal, and what are you doing to get there? Like in this next year or two, like how do you, I guess, approach growth of your software company?
Well, I take it on three different horizons. I take it on the immediate horizon, like what are we doing next sprint, next couple weeks, or next two sprints, like this month. What's our midterm, like annual plan, 2-year plan, and then what's our long-term vision? So the conversations are very different at those different levels. You know, immediately we have a huge backlog of features. We get our customers to vote on things so we can detect trends and challenge our own assumptions about what people want and that sort of thing. So we're constantly in agile development. It's called grooming the backlog. We're constantly floating ideas and taking feature requests from our user base. So that's kind of like the short term. The longer term vision has to do with just or I'd say the medium-term vision is building on what we already have, which means kind of moving off of that beachhead a little bit, not abandoning it, but again, transcending and including, and moving into a tool set that can serve a more multi-teacher platform. Think, non-traditional online school in whatever niche. You know, there's some additional layers of functionality, so that could be added to better serve those markets. There's already multi-teacher platforms out there using Lifter, but there's some things we can do to really expand into that market. So that's kind of a medium-term objective in the tool set and the reporting and the what different users can do. And then the next evolution, or I'd say the grand vision of the whole thing, is that we're continuously focused on more societal problems. Like if learning isn't necessarily getting jobs or not really preparing people for the modern economy, either from a skill set perspective or empowering other entrepreneurs to start businesses, we're aligning our product roadmap to help solve those problems. Our number one goal is to solve social and business problems with software. And one of the reasons we have a free front end is because, and this is the beauty of SaaS and the internet, is you can have a global business. We wanted people to be able to launch courses and create their own MVPs in anywhere in the world, that they can have a website, install WordPress, and take our free plugin and start getting sales for their courses. So that's a big part of our mission, and that creates ubiquity. And that's why our user base grew quite a bit since our business model changed. But in the long run, we're really committed to the education entrepreneurs out there, and also to the, besides making money with courses, people who are trying to do things with training, even other SaaS companies who aren't leveraging courses as a form of marketing and customer onboarding to reduce churn, or as a traditional business who is trying to curate, its top performers' knowledge and stuff into some kind of internal training database. There's all kinds of different ways to leverage online education and solve business problems, and also just social problems, getting people skills and helping people educate the world around different issues and that sort of thing. So that's the big vision.
Well, Chris, I just want to say thank you so much for a great conversation. Love everything you've been working on. LifterLMS is a great platform. Encourage people to check it out. Go to LifterLMS.com. Love your backstory and just everything you're working on and trying to grow here. So now I want to give you the floor. Where can people reach out to find you and find out more about your platform?
The best place is just to go to LifterLMS.com. And if you want to listen to my podcast, you can just Google LMSCast or just find a link to it at LifterLMS.com. You can also find me on Twitter at Chris Badgett.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much. And it was great having you on In the Trenches.
Thanks for having me on the show, Tom. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to In the Trenches. Your creative work doesn't stop here. Join the resistance, the small but growing army of entrepreneurs and artists putting a dent in the world at www.tommorkes.com. Never fight alone. Join the resistance.